14 hours ago, a series of satellite images began circulating on defense forums. Images that, at first glance, looked like routine Arctic logistics. But look closer. What you're seeing isn't just another convoy. It's a column of Russian military vehicles, each one painted with a new insignia, a polar bear clutching a missile, stenciled in white across the doors. And behind them, a line of mobile missile launchers, their warheads pointed north, not west, not east, but straight toward the polar ice. Pause. Let's take a breath and really consider what this means. These aren't just military maneuvers. According to open-source satellite data from February 2024, verified by the Arctic Security Initiative, this is the largest Russian deployment to the Novaya Zemlya archipelago since the Cold War. And it's not just the scale that's new, it's the messaging. Each vehicle, each missile is a statement, a warning, a psychological operation aimed not just at NATO, but at every nation with a stake in the melting Arctic. Why now? Why here? And why the polar bear? Let's rewind. Just 5 days before these images surfaced, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with Norwegian officials in Oslo. The official agenda: fisheries, shipping lanes, and regional cooperation. But military analysts I spoke with believe the real negotiations were about something else entirely: control of the Northern Sea Route, the new maritime highway opening as the ice recedes. And then, almost on cue, the images appear. Russian missile launchers, radar domes, and even a new airstrip carved out of permafrost, visible from space. The timing is no accident. This is information warfare, Arctic style. But here's what makes this more than just saber rattling. According to a recent report from the Royal United Services Institute, the Russian Ministry of Defense has begun naming specific Western naval commanders in their state media broadcasts. Not just the enemy, but Admiral James Peterson, commander of the U.S. Second Fleet, Rear Admiral Ingrid Solheim, head of Norway's Arctic Command. Their names, ranks, and even photographs aired on Russian television, superimposed over images of Arctic missile batteries. Think about that. This isn't abstract, it's personal, it's targeted. And it's not just for show. 3 hours ago, the Barents Observer confirmed that Russian engineers have begun digging new bunkers at Rogachevo Air Base. Not just for equipment, but for VIP protection. A phrase that, in Russian military parlance, means command staff. The implication? Russia expects this region to become a front line, and they're preparing to shelter their own leadership while threatening ours. Now, let's look at the crowd. In Murmansk, state television broadcast images of schoolchildren bundled in parkas, waving Russian flags, chanting "Arktika Nasha," the Arctic is ours. The footage was replayed on loop, not just in Russia, but on social media channels targeting Scandinavian audiences. The message: Russia's population is mobilized, unified, and ready to defend its claim. But the real audience isn't just domestic. It's Washington, Oslo, Ottawa, and Brussels. The images of missile convoys, the naming of Western commanders, the children chanting in the snow. Each element is a calculated move in a psychological chess game. And the symbolism runs deep. The polar bear insignia? According to a leaked Russian defense white paper, it's meant to evoke both national pride and territorial warning. The bear does not threaten, the document reads, but it defends its den with all its strength. A message to the world. Cross this line and you'll face consequences. But the threat isn't just symbolic. According to open-source maritime tracking, Russian icebreakers have begun shadowing NATO research vessels in the Kara Sea. Not interfering, just watching, recording, making their presence known. It's a form of intimidation that's hard to counter. After all, who owns the ice? And then there's the infrastructure. Satellite imagery from the European Space Agency, analyzed by Jane's Defense Weekly, shows new radar installations going live at Cape Zelania. These aren't just for weather tracking. They're military grade, capable of monitoring every ship and aircraft within 500 kilometers. The message is clear. Russia sees everything that moves in the Arctic, and they want you to know it. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. In a move that caught Western intelligence off guard, Russian state media announced the construction of a memorial complex on Novaya Zemlya, complete with empty graves and plaques bearing the names of Western naval officers. Not just a monument, but a threat. A promise that, should conflict come, Russia is ready to bury its enemies on Arctic soil. I have to pause here. As someone who's covered military affairs for years, I've seen plenty of bluster, but this is different. The personalization, the timing, the infrastructure, it all points to a new level of psychological warfare, and the impact is immediate. Within hours of the satellite images going public, defense stocks in Europe spiked. Oil futures jumped on fears of a northern sea route closure. And in Washington, congressional aides began circulating briefings warning of unprecedented Russian escalation in the Arctic. But the most profound effect is on military planning. When commanders see their own names on Russian broadcasts, when they watch their faces superimposed over missile launchers, it changes the calculus. Suddenly, the threat isn't just to ships or bases, it's to individuals, to leaders, to decision makers. And that's the point. According to a Rand Corporation analysis, this kind of targeted psychological warfare is designed to create hesitation, to make Western leaders think twice before authorizing patrols, before sending reinforcements, before challenging Russian claims. It's a strategy that costs almost nothing, but can yield enormous strategic dividends. So, what happens next? In my view, we're entering a new phase of Arctic competition, one where information, symbolism, and psychological pressure matter as much as tanks and missiles. The Russian bear has drawn a line in the ice, and it's daring the world to cross it. But here's the question I keep coming back to. Are we ready for this kind of warfare? Not just the hardware, but the mind games, the personalized threats, the public naming, the graves prepared in advance? Because as of 14 hours ago, the world saw a new front open, not with a bang, but with a photograph, a convoy in the snow, a polar bear on a missile, and the names of Western commanders, broadcast for all to see. This is how modern conflict unfolds, not just on the battlefield, but in the mind. In the images we share, the names we remember, the threats we can't ignore. Russia understands this. The question is, do we?